it can be a blessing and a curse, but really you have a lot of power over your time and energy when you're an entrepreneur. And so it becomes really important then to manage that time and energy in a way that shows what your priorities are.
Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm your host, Dan Purcell, a Christian marriage and intimacy expert and coach. I'm on a mission to help couples have the best sex and most emotionally intimate marriages possible. Our episodes cover topics you've always wondered about and are packed with practical advice designed to help you take your marriage to the next level. In my program in Next Level, I've come across several couples that are struggling in their marriage because one or both are entrepreneurs. There's a lot of stress that happens in the marriage relationship, especially on the sexual relationship for entrepreneurs. And I want to do a podcast episode dedicated to all listeners where one or both of you are in the middle of building a business. As Americans, we love a good underdog story and often romanticize the entrepreneurial journey, especially those that make sacrifices, take risks, overcome obstacle after obstacle, and eventually come out on top. As a career entrepreneur myself, I've come to realize that the entrepreneur journey isn't as glamorous as it may appear to be. Another thing people don't talk about is how entrepreneurship is often very hard on marriages. In fact, as you'll hear in this episode, divorce is more common among couples where one or both spouses are entrepreneurs. My guest today is Monica Tanner. She is a marriage and intimacy expert and runs several programs for couples to strengthen their marriage. She's also an entrepreneur, married to a successful entrepreneur. So she's like an ideal expert on this very topic. In this episode, we're going to talk about the two intimacy killers that entrepreneur couples often fall prey to, and the one superpower that entrepreneurs have that are often overlooked to build a strong marriage. And we'll conclude with the one simple yet powerful thing you can do to keep the intimacy and sexual relationship alive, even when things are stressful and chaotic. We've just announced our next in-person marriage retreat, and I want to make sure you're invited. Our retreats are for married couples that are in otherwise good marriages, but wish things were better in the intimacy department. Our retreats are rewarding because they challenge your thinking and help you see your patterns that you often fall into that keep you stuck. They're also super romantic, fun, and we laugh a lot. The next retreat is October 26th through 29 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's limited to just 20 couples, and we will sell out, so don't delay. You can find more details on our website at getyourmarriageon.com, click on retreats, and then the DFW retreat. There you can see video testimonials of past people that have attended our retreats to see if this is really a good thing that will strengthen your marriage. Monica Tanner, welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. How are you this morning?
Oh my gosh, so excited to be here. I love any opportunity we have to chat. So
Yes. Now, you've been a guest on my podcast in the past. I'm so happy to have you back to talk about today's topic. But first, I want to know what's been your most memorable anniversary?
Oh, great question. Well, actually, I was really looking forward to our 21st anniversary, which we just celebrated last week because
Woo! Congratulations.
I know 21 years, we've done it. We made it. But the reason is because our 20-year anniversary was a total disaster. We basically just skipped over it because we were mostly just fighting.
Why were you fighting?
Well, it was just a really stressful period in our marriage. So we have 4 kids. Our oldest was graduating from high school. So our anniversary is in May, and that's a really busy time for graduating seniors, right? But also, he had decided after high school, he was leaving the country to serve a 2-year mission for our church. And so I was getting him ready not only to graduate from high school, but also helping him pack and get all the things he needed together for this 2-year trip where he was going to be out of the country. I wasn't going to be able to, get him the things that he needed. And so as a mother, I'm, getting him all these medications and these nice shoes and like all of the things that I thought he was going to need for these 2 years. He's been out 9 months now, which is really amazing. He's 9 months into his 2 years, but
Mhm.
I was spending a lot of money because he was leaving and I felt like he needed all of these things to be prepared. And my husband, who served the same type of a mission 25 years ago was like,
Uh-huh.
he doesn't need all that stuff. Why are you spending all of this money? Right. And so I felt like we were constantly battling, not only because it was a really stressful time, but also I was spending an inordinate amount of money to get him ready to go. And I wanted to spend more time with him. And I was really emotional. And so, yes, that was a pretty stressful time. So we just basically skipped over our 20-year anniversary.
Yeah, that does not sound like fun to be stressed out like that. You didn't
It
even go on
was.
a date. You
It
didn't
was.
even post a photo. You didn't even like you just
Nothing. I know. I'm a relationship expert, and I didn't even celebrate our 20-year anniversary. How's that for awesome?
Alright, that's cool. Now, you and your husband are both entrepreneurs, and tell me about what you do entrepreneurially.
Yeah. So my husband owns a service-based business that in compounding all of that, it gets really busy in the summer. So starting in about May is when his business really, really picks up and takes off. So it was stressful time for him as well. And we go through this. It's May now, and he's a
Mhm,
little bit more stressed. So I think we're going to be talking about that during this episode. But so he does have a service-based business that he runs, and then I have my coaching practice for married couples. So we both run businesses. They're very, very different, but both what we love to do. So
So I want to talk about how entrepreneurship takes a toll on marriages. Are there any statistics that you've found? Like, do I don't know, do entrepreneurial couples have a higher divorce rate than the national average?
yeah, so it's really interesting because as we were talking before we started recording, I've never been able to pinpoint like an exact study to be able to quote you officially that that is the case. But I did learn that from another one of our peers in who is a sex therapist who says that entrepreneurs have a higher divorce rate. And looking into it, just with my Google search, it is cited on a lot of attorneys' websites. So it's possible that attorneys just have more experience with entrepreneurial couples because it's probably more complicated to go through the divorce proceedings and all of that when you do own a business, either, in your one of you or both of you. So
Gotcha. So why would that be? What is it that makes entrepreneur couples, you know, more divorce ready? I guess you
yeah,
could
so
say.
that's what makes it really interesting is because you read the statistic and as an entrepreneur, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. There are a lot of reasons why owning a business in your marriage would make that divorce rate a little bit higher. And so some of those reasons include businesses require a lot of attention, especially in the beginning, right? So entrepreneurs are very, very focused on building this business, making it work. And a lot of people will say, I'm doing this for the family, but it's all consuming. I mean, all of your attention, your energy, your financial resources, and your time are going towards this thing, and so often, if your spouse is not a part of the business, they're going to feel very neglected unless they are in on the vision, they're on board, they understand that it's going to be a season of sacrifice for everyone in the family, not only energetically, but financially and all the other things. So it's really important to be on the same page, to have really good communication skills and things like that. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why entrepreneurs have a higher divorce rate, but also just the stress involved. I mean, marriage and family life, those are things that never sleep, right? You're always married, you always have those family children responsibilities, but when you have a business, you're not clocking in, clocking out. It's like you're always on. You're
Mhm,
always in charge of that business. So no matter what, it permeates your thoughts and you have to be really intentional about how you manage your time and your energy.
mhm. In light of all the problems and the stress and the attention and the energy that businesses consume when you're
Uh-huh.
an entrepreneur, what are some strategies that couples do to still maintain balance so that they have a strong marriage as well as a strong business?
Yes. Okay. So that's a great question. So intentionality is going to be key here. It's going to be really, really, really important to be intentional with your time, and your energy, like I said, so that you are investing properly in your marriage, right? So, yes, your business is going to take a lot of time. Yes, you have to stay on top of that, but being intentional about how you communicate with your partner is going to be key, right? So it really helps. So entrepreneurs are typically visionary, right? They have this big vision, these big dreams, the things that they want to accomplish. And making your partner a co-pilot is really going to be important. So making sure that they understand the vision, that they're properly bought into the vision. Otherwise, I have a really good friend and she is married to an entrepreneur. But for a long time, before they were actually communicating and she was kind of in on his bigger vision, she described it being married to an entrepreneur like being dragged blindfolded through the mud, right? So
Okay. Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
just hanging on for dear life because you've got this entrepreneurial spouse who knows what they're after. They've got this big vision. They're super excited. Usually they take more risks with their money and things like that. And so if you're not bought into the vision, if you're not on the same page with the different sacrifices that you're making, especially at the beginning of a business, then it really does feel like you're just along for the ride and you have no idea what's going on. So I think it's really important for the entrepreneur, whether it's both of you building the business together, which my husband and I did for a long period of time in our marriage, but it's really important to communicate like, here's our vision, our goals for the business. It's going to be a season of sacrifice where we might have to, budget better and things like that because a lot of our resources go towards the business. And I remember when we were building our business, being pregnant with my third, having little toddlers in tow, and my husband having to be out of town, but I had to get to the office and answer phone calls. I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice, but if you know why you're doing it and you're both bought into the vision, it makes it a lot easier than if you're just sitting at home waiting for your spouse to get home and wondering like, how did today go? Like, are we in the red still? Like, how are things going? So being able to communicate with each other is really, really important.
That's good. That's good. As you're talking, I think about our early days with my business. We just eked out an existence. Like income
Yes.
was so meager, and whatever we did make, we had to, or we chose to reinvest right into the business because we wanted a better tomorrow. It had a lot of sacrifices all over just to make things work.
Yeah. And the business that my husband and I started was very seasonal as well. So we would make a little bit of money in the summer months that would have to get us through the entire year. So it was really important that we both were on the same page. Like, it looks like we have money in our account right now, but we're not making big expenditures because that money has to last us until the next summer. Right. So there's a
Right.
lot of things that are really important to be able to communicate with your partner.
I like how you mentioned the entrepreneurs are usually visionary. So you want to bring your spouse on as a co pilot and not just drag them through that, and how important that communication is. Why is it difficult sometimes for entrepreneurs to really open up and tell their spouse about their vision and where they want things to go?
Yeah, well, depending on the business that you're running, I mean, a lot of us, we have meetings with our team and, we know what we're doing, but that vision casting is harder to do at home for a lot of reasons. I mean, you've got employees, you've got team members that you're paying to do the things that you ask them to do, right? And that doesn't always translate at home because it's like, I've got this, great plan. This is going to work. We're going to make $1 million. It's like awesome. And your spouse might be like, yeah, but can you take out the garbage? Right.
Uh
So
huh. Uh huh.
when you pay somebody to like buy into your vision, it's a little bit different. They have,
Uh huh.
more admiration and things like that. You're getting that encouragement, the good feedback at work. And then
Right.
you
You get that
come
validation. Right. Exactly.
Exactly, and then you come home and your spouse is like, "Yeah, but, the weeds need to be pulled, the garbage needs to go out." Like, I mean,
Uh
can you
huh.
take your son to soccer practice? Like, you're not necessarily getting the same type of reinforcement that you're getting at work.
And that's probably a good example of why some of the skills that make you successful as an entrepreneur don't translate well to being a good spouse.
Yeah.
And I like what you talked about. Like a big breakthrough happened in my own marriage because I used to like, oh, I'm more important than my wife because I'm
Mhm.
making the money or whatever. I buy into those thoughts.
Right.
And I came by them honestly, but when I really sat down to think about it, and if my wife is really an equal with me, then an hour of my time is just as valuable as an hour of her time. But I used to not treat her time like she can do the crumbs while I do the important things. It's kind of the way we would go about our marriage. So it created this inequality that wasn't fair for both of us.
Yeah. And it's very common. I mean,
Uh-huh.
especially with the division of labor like that, when you are bringing home the paycheck, bringing home the money, it feels more important than changing the diapers and the laundry and, those types of things.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have to get to the point where you realize. And the other thing that's really hard about, my husband and I were working in the business together for a lot of years, but he would actually leave the house and go to the office and work there, where I was doing my company responsibilities at home while also managing the children in the household. So he would come home from his quiet office where he was getting a lot done to where it looked like nothing had happened at home, right? I've got kids running around half naked and,
Uh-huh.
the dinner is burning, but I still have to do the payroll, right? So
Right.
it's like, you get home and you're like, wait, I got all this stuff done at the office. Nothing's been done here, but you're not aware of, everything that's going on behind the scenes.
Right. And how you're constantly interrupted at home every moment. So you can't like dig into one thing long enough to complete it. Right.
Exactly. Oh, when I finally had to replace myself in the business was after I had my third baby and I'm like trying to write paychecks, but she needs to be nursed. She's not going
Uh-huh.
to like, so it was like a matter of, get somebody to do the payroll and the accounting or, you know, take me to the funny farm because I can't do it all, right? It's just like the house is burning down and I'm trying to meet the payroll deadlines. It wasn't working out very well.
No. Are there other skills that entrepreneurs have that make them successful at work, but don't translate well to their marriage?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is really the stress of owning a business. It just never sleeps. And so something that I talk a lot about with my clients is having stress reducing conversations, is being able to detach from that because it's really hard. I mean, for my husband when we go on vacation now, I mean, it's like he's not there. There are employees that are amazing and we've got managers that, can run things and do things phenomenally, but it's like the fires still come to him. So it's really hard to completely unplug. And so being intentional at home each day and having the skill sets to be able to have those kind of stress reducing conversations with each other is really important. So being able to really listen with the intent of understanding each other's experience, those types of skills become really, really important to build up.
That's good. That's good. And when you said that reminds me, when I started my business, I had a web hosting company, and that's for websites that needed hosting. We went on this trip, and as we were leaving, my cell phone started beeping, saying there was some problems, some alerts, and we looked into it, and there was a car accident that caused the fiber optic line to sever, which
Oh, no.
brought everything down. So all like 200 or so websites I was hosting were all down. There was absolutely nothing I could do about it. We were heading, had no cell reception. And I was a basket case. I could not
Yeah,
enjoy my vacation because
right.
all I could think about is all these angry customers and how I'd have to fix it for them. And
Yeah.
I had
And
zero power to
you're
do
the
that.
only
Right.
one that can do it, right? Like
Right.
you're the only one that can manage all these angry customers, right? It's a lot of responsibility.
But it made for a miserable vacation because I couldn't relax. I couldn't enjoy it. And so those around me, unfortunately, got the brunt of that. So I coach a few clients. Two of them come to mind. And in this case, they both happen to have wives who have businesses that are really successful. So they've become more of the supporting role. And I don't think this is gender specific, but these two come to mind, happen to be in this situation. And they're so frustrated with their sexual relationship because spouse just is never like present. All their creative energy is channeled out of the marriage into their business.
Mhm.
And in this case, with them both being men, running a business is a very masculine energy type of thing. It's very mission driven, very like you got to be pointed and direct and lead. And so uh, their wives are not stepping into their feminine energy at home, and that's creating a lot of friction. And what would you say to these men? And it doesn't have to be just men, but but where your spouse is really running the show, and then sex is just like non-existent, or if it happens, it feels more perfunctory than it does seem like intimate communion of two souls coming together.
Yeah. So definitely what I would say about that is I think the two biggest obstacles that a business owner who is in a sexual marriage relationship have to overcome is the stress. Like the two enemies to a good sexual relationship is stress and resentment. And so I can definitely speak to this right now because I'm in a big push right now. I am launching my brand new Passionate Marriage membership, and it's taking a lot of, like you said, my creative energy. I'm staying up very late and working on, the things that are required in an intense launch period, right? And I can see that my husband is getting a little frustrated because he's going to bed by himself. In the morning, I'm like out of bed, like gotta go. He's like wanting to snuggle, and I'm like, I have all these things on my list, right? And so the enemies of a great sexual relationship are coming into play where it's the stress that I'm feeling of getting everything done during this big push and the resentment that both of us are probably feeling, him more than I, because I'm not there, right? I'm not going to bed at the same time as him. I'm waking up in the morning before we're getting to like really get into our snuggle time. And so those two things I think are really important. And the way I would say to combat that is a really good communication. Like this morning, I was like, I know, like I owe you some time, right? And I'm going to get to you this weekend. Like I promise my launch ends on Thursday. So, Friday night, I'm all yours, except for the fact that I'm actually going out of town with my daughters. Like Sunday, I'm all yours. Like I promise. Like so, setting a kind of an end date, like communicating, like I see you. I know that we're not getting our time together, and so like setting up a time where like we can kind of make up for that is good because it gives him something to look forward to. Like this isn't going to last forever. So communicating, setting time aside, and really honestly, it really is all about communication. It's about both partners being able to talk about what it is that they are feeling with all of the stress to prevent the resentment that will be formed if you don't speak up about how you're feeling, but also important for both spouses to really seek for understanding, right? Like I know my husband likes to have time with me, and of course I like to have time with him too. So being able to hear more than him complaining about whatever, it's like me hearing like, yes, you're missing your snuggle time. You're missing that emotional, physical, sexual connection that we usually enjoy together. And being able to be intentional about, hey, okay, here's the period of time where this is going to last. Here's where it's going to be over. Like, let's set something up that we can both get really excited about to celebrate the end of the launch and, the time that we have to spend together, things like that. So I think that really comes into play when you're managing stress and resentment, but also building in some systems like date night, like daily connections, right? Where you're setting aside time where not only it's helpful for me because now I'm like out of the stress. I'm going, okay, let's have a conversation where it's just the two of us. We're minimizing distractions and we're talking about things that are not stressful, that are light and fun and exciting and planning for, when it's over and things like that. So that manages the stress, but being able to talk about each of our feelings. So in your case, the husband, them being able to have a set aside time where they can talk about their feelings or things that are exciting to them or whatever is going to help manage their resentment. So you want to manage the two kind of intimacy killers, which are stress and resentment.
That's good. And I liked your example of how you're like, I see you. I know that I haven't given you what you need, but I promise on this day it'll happen. Any tips or advice from the other direction? Like, what if it was your husband coming to you saying, Monica, what about me? Like, what are some strategies he can use or shifts he can take that help create that,
Yeah. Well, I
communicate
know
that
for
better?
me in this period, like him taking an interest in what's happening with me is really, really helpful. So when he's like,
Helpful
hey, how'd
for
it go?
him, helpful for you.
It's helpful for me. Like it turns me towards him. Like, oh, he really is my support system and I want to be there for him and hear his experience. Right. So, but for him to kind of do it first, because I forget. Like I'm in the launch, I'm like, thinking about these things. But when he's like, hey, how'd it go today? How was that? How did that live go? What are your numbers like? Are you excited? Like, whatever. Like when he turns towards me like that, it's easier for me to turn towards him and be like, "Oh, yeah, it's great. Thank you for taking an interest. How are you doing?" So, I think that's something really important is to go first, and to
Yes.
to
Uh-huh.
show an interest that even though you might not be a part of what I'm doing, it's important to you because it's important to me.
Good. 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 Very good. Anything else?
I cannot overstress knowing how to communicate. Like when he reaches over and hugs me in the morning and I'm like, "Oh, I love this, but I got to get up because I've got this appointment or I've got something that I need to do." It's really just saying, "Oh, like I'm going to miss you," or like the little comments of saying like, "Hey, this is really important to me. I love, see cuz here's the thing, I think it's really is sexy, like, for me, when things are going well, like, I feel confident, I feel sexy, like, I wanna pour into the relationship, but when things aren't going well, if my numbers aren't where I want them to be, that's kind of a blow, but when he's encouraging and loving and, like, still thinks I'm super sexy and loves me no matter what, I think that's important. It's like that encouragement, that communication, that like, "Hey, like, I want you. Like, I'm here. I want you. I see that you're busy and, you've got these things going on, but I'm just letting you know I'm here and you are super hot and sexy to me regardless." Like, that's a huge turn on.
Great. So, what are any benefits that come from being an entrepreneurial couple?
Yeah, so that's what's so amazing about owning your own business because yes, it's hard and yes, it's stressful, but there is so much freedom that comes, time freedom, energy freedom and things like that. You're the boss. So you get to set it up and that it can be really good and it can also be really bad because your spouse is like, "Wait, you're the boss. Why can't you take off and pick up the kids or whatever?" Right? So it can be a blessing and a curse, but really you have a lot of power over your time and energy when you're an entrepreneur. And so it becomes really important then to manage that time and energy in a way that shows what your priorities are. So of course there will be seasons of misalignment, but as you kind of roll and get your rhythm and things like that, it's important to really prioritize your family and your relationship and you can do that so much better when you're an entrepreneur.
That's good. Well, let's shift gears a bit and talk about, let's say you're a couple, you're communicating better, you're setting better boundaries, you're managing stress and resentment, those two big intimacy killers that you mentioned. What are some creative date ideas that spouses can do to just up the ante more in their relationship?
If you've been married for a really long time, sometimes you fall into a rut, like we go out to dinner, we go see a movie, we come home,
Right. Uh-huh.
whatever. So I think role play is really fun, but if you're a little bit anxious about that, it's just like if you can channel the fun, flirty energy by acting like it's the first time that you're
Uh-huh.
meeting,
Uh-huh.
it's like I am having so much fun with that. So, like, we go to a restaurant, maybe that has a bar or, has a waiting area, and you just greet each other as if it's the first time you've ever met, like, "Hey," how are you? Like, and then you choose to have dinner together like you haven't been married for 25 years, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Right.
I think that's really fun. And then if you can bring in some aspects of role play, like, I act like I'm a traveling nurse or something, and my husband is a surgeon and whatever. Like,
Uh-huh. Right.
you
Uh-huh.
kind of bring in these elements of something a little bit different, something a little bit new. That kind of I think that kind of creative energy translates really well into the bedroom.
That's right. You can get like a new outfit just for the date, wear a new scent.
Yeah.
Like there's so many fun ways you can like go with that. That's
Absolutely,
good.
absolutely, yes, and that novelty, yes, like, if you feel sexy, like, that's everything, right? So, definitely new shoes, new outfit, new lingerie underneath your clothes, all of that is so much fun.
It's good. Any other tips to make date night more creative and fun to get you out of that rut?
There's this huge debate about, like, scheduling sex, and I am a bigger proponent of scheduling date night and then letting sex happen naturally than scheduling sex specifically. So,
Uh-huh.
I think if you just make sure that you're doing everything for date night where you have enough energy for sex afterwards is really important. So that means putting it on the schedule. That means planning in advance. That means building up anticipation. That means knowing what you're doing so that if you're going to be out late, you take a nap before, or you manage what time you go to bed leading up to date night, right? So if you make date night really really a priority and you're planning it in and planning for it, then you'll look forward to the sexual encounter afterwards. So I think that's so 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 important.
That's very good. Monica, tell us about your launch. Tell us where people can find you online and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the easiest place to find me is on my website, monicatanner.com. Super simple. You can find information about podcasts and all of those things. But right now, I am launching the Passionate Marriage membership, which is for husbands and wives who are looking to up level in communication, connection, conflict resolution, commitment, all of the amazing things, and especially intimacy. I tried to make it just really, really accessible. It's a good companion to other courses, to therapy, or just wanting to have more fun together. It's literally less than $1 a day, and you're investing in your marriage, and you're going to get really awesome skill sets that that are supported with all of the resources that you're going to get inside the membership. So it's super, super fun. And you can learn more about that by going to secretsofhappilyeverafter.com/PM club. And something really interesting that I'll share with you is some people have come to me and they're like, "Oh, I follow all of these experts like Dan Purcell and Amanda Lauder and you and Tammy Hill." And I was like, "You know what's amazing is they're all so phenomenal, like, and we're all friends and we all work together. We all teach very similar content. So the great thing is you can follow all of us, but like go to our podcasts or our programs or whatever and just look through and see what applies to your marriage the most right now and just dig into that because we all work together and teach such complementary concepts. So I love working with you and, having our people kind of go back and forth because we talk about a lot of the same things, but we have very different experiences and voices, right? Like you're a man in the software industry, and that's how you talk about things. Like I'm a woman with lots of children and whatever, and so it's like we talk about things in different ways that I think appeal to different people at different times. But it's all so important and so good.
That's so good. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in accelerating growth in your marriage, either sexually, emotionally, or spiritually, I want to invite you to work with me in my affordable coaching program called Next Level. More information about Next Level and my fun and sexy apps for couples are available at getyourmarriageon.com. Please also don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And be sure to tell your married friends. I promise, they will thank you for life. Now go get your marriage on.